Good morning, ladies and gentlemen, and thank you very much for joining us today. We really appreciate the time that you've given up to come and join us today and participate in the EXSA Connects on sustainability. I think sustainability is such a huge subject, and most of us, including myself, really feel overwhelmed by the subject that we kind of just zone out and throw it onto a top file somewhere and say, well, we'll deal with it somewhere along the line. And we'll deal with it somewhere along the line. But we have a panel who's really passionate about sustainability, and grateful to them that they can journey us through and bring it down into a manageable subject that we can all kind of deal with. So I'd like to introduce you to the panel. And panel, if you can.
Nice to see you.
If you can put your mics off for us, please, I'll appreciate that. So I'll introduce you to Beat from Octanorm, Gary from Zenita, Gavin from Technology Partners, John from Chatra, and Liam from Hot 3D, and they are supported by Leanne. So without further ado, I'm going to hand you over to John to take us through some of the questions as how can we bring sustainability to a small business? Can we embrace the 17 pillars? Because some of us might already be doing it, and we're just not really mindful that we are already doing it. Are our industry really practicing recycling in some way or form already, that some of the smaller businesses can participate in your greening program so it becomes inclusion? And how can we use or help each other, use each other through this journey? So John, without further ado, we're going to put you in the limelight and ask you, how can we move forward with sustainability?
Thank you, Jackie, and good morning to everybody. First of all, I'd like to say thank you very much to EXSA for giving me and the Event Greening Forum the opportunity to take part in today's EXSA Connect. It's very exciting for us in terms of the fact that we are collaborating as different associations and working together, because ultimately, this is a journey that not only one person needs to be part of. It's the entire industry that needs to take part of it. But at the same time, you know, if we each make a small change, it becomes a bigger difference. So it's it's about power in numbers rather than trying to do everything on your own. So thank you very much again to EXSA for this opportunity. And as the Vice Chair at the Event Greening Forum, we are very excited about the opportunities that are currently being faced with by our industry in terms of collaboration. So how do we bring sustainability to small businesses? And that is the big question, because at the end of the day, everybody talks about carbon neutral and carbon footprint and big words like sustainability and greening and greenwashing and all of those kind of things. And it can get quite confusing and also quite frightening to embark on this journey. When we talk about the 17 goals also towards the net zero campaign that JMCI have launched and signed at COP26 last year in Cairo. So for us, it's about making that start. How do we make that start? And it can become as simple as easy as working within your own office space before you even get into the exhibition space or the event space and things like that. You know, a small little change within our own home space or in our own workspace. But and often when our members join us and they also, okay, we want to join this green journey, how do we make a start? And I often just say to them, at the end of the day, you know, a simple thing like setting up recycling bins in an office environment or on your exhibition stands when you start doing work, so that as waste gets generated, it gets sorted at source, so it doesn't just go all into one bin. And then from that space, it can then easily be sent off to various different recycling centers, or even I know in Johannesburg, I don't know whether it's countrywide, but the Johannesburg municipality is actually getting one thing right, where they actually have a recycling system within their normal pick it up environment for general waste. And it's so easy now. One doesn't even have to go anywhere with our recycle and waste. We just literally separate it, put it in different bags, and leave it outside on the pavement on the day that garbage gets collected. And it's as simple and easy as that. So already by doing that sort of thing, you're making a difference. And as I said, if we all do that, it's going to make a huge impact. So that's a simple way to start our greening journey. And then we can start looking at different things. Also within the exhibition environment and event space, start looking at the materials that one uses. You know, when you're sitting down and planning your exhibition booth design, think about the different types of materials you're going to use. Think about ways of being able to reuse what's being put into the design or into the construction or into the event. Because reusing elements is also a form of recycling. I mean, if you look at the definition of recycling, it's the reusing of elements, it's to recycle. So even by reusing some elements, you are already starting to make the impact. So like you said, Jackie, at the start of the introduction, was that we may be doing stuff already that we don't realize is making an impact. It's all about just taking that initiative, thinking about what you're doing, and seeing that you've already started making that impact. So once you start doing one or two things right, it's going to be easier then to start doing more and more right. And then we can then expand on our journey. And by then, hopefully, we're into this whole passionate environment about seeing that we made a difference, and then carrying on as we go forward towards the 2050 goal and the halving the carbon footprint by 2030. So at the end of the day, sustainability is not difficult. Recycling and greening is not difficult. It's just about making that commitment and thinking about what we're doing and implementing it. And when I talk about sustainability, it's not just necessarily sustainability in the greening space. It's also talking about sustainability in the in the social space. Again, when we doing an event or when we're building an exhibition stand, let's look at what we can source from the local environment around us at the particular point of where we're actually building. So instead of transporting stuff all around the country, let's look at sourcing materials, sourcing people in it locally. So it's also adding sustainability to the local economies in which we're working and providing in. So all those kind of things are elements in which we can do to bring sustainability and greening into our industry. I kind of answered the second question, is about how do we start using the 17 pillars of sustainability on a daily basis. I think I've pretty much answered that question as well. And as you can see, it's really pretty simple and easy to actually make that start. The other way of starting is obviously in our offices. Let's try and avoid printing. I know that there are some players in our industry that no longer print their designs and that out. They've made the investment. Yes, it's maybe something of an initial outlay, but ultimately the financial investment now is going to have a huge impact in the investment in our future from a climate change point of view, is that using tablet devices and things like that on site instead of printing out reams and reams of paper and things like that. And the next thing that EXSA maybe wants to embark upon is our safety files. How do we digitize that and make that an electronic version instead of carrying around wads and wads of paper in a file and having to print them out every single time? So you know, those are initiatives that can be thought about and worked on. But ourselves as individual companies or organizations or as individuals, maybe we need to start thinking of how we do things differently in our offices. I know in my office, I definitely encourage no printing. If I tell you, I think I I had one of those big Minolta copiers, scanners, devices. I got rid of it from the office. So we've got a small little inkjet printer now. So that already stopped a whole lot of printing because people were just printing for the sake of printing because it was quick and easy. Now with the printer that takes a little bit slower to print, everybody tends to not print so much anymore. So that was actually a good thing. And if I personally, from my desktop this whole year, have printed 10 documents, that's been a lot. So it's really very easy to start making these small changes. But if you have to print, then look at investing in recycled paper. Typec, Mondi, all of those kind of companies are now selling and making paper that's already been repurposed from recycled paper. Again, as I say, if you've got your recycling bins in your office, it'll go back into that bin once you used it, and it goes back into that whole process. So we go into that journey of going round and round and round. Our organizers, suppliers, venues, and practicing recycling in some way, form, and that the SMEs can. There are some venues and suppliers that are working in that space, and organizers. Sadly, in South Africa, it hasn't been a great uptake as yet. But as we've been discussing as associations, more and more international organizers are coming into our country, and obviously on a global scale, because of the climate change and all the initiatives that are taking place at the various COPs and climate conferences, etc., it's becoming more and more of a thing for greening and organizers, and to make sure that their events are being audited. They are implementing greening strategies, and that. So South Africa, I'm glad to see starting to take that up, but we've still got a long way to go when it comes to doing greening at events and organizers. I know for a fact that a couple of years ago at Meetings Africa, there was full-on green audits, and all the stand builders, event organizers, and that were required to comply, and they did a full greening audit. I know it hasn't, since COVID, it hasn't been quite the same. But I think now that we are year 3 after COVID, I think we need to start bringing that back in, and stand builders can play your part in terms of making sure that you keep your waste to an absolute minimum when you go onto site. And how can we use each other? Well, by sharing knowledge. And that's what we're doing here today, is we're sharing knowledge with one another. We're sharing our ideas. And the more we speak about it, the more we collaborate, as we are doing now as different associations, and EXSA and the EGF and those type of organizations working together, collaborating. We'll be able to join this journey and spread the word a lot easier, and get people to join. And that is my story on sustainability and greening.
Thank you, John. Yeah, I think it makes absolute sense. It starts to come a little bit closer to encouraging everybody within our daily lives, which will flow into our work lives, and slowly we'll get more and more better at recycling and join the drive for sustainability and saving our beautiful planet. Liam, what do you think of that?
Yeah, John, I also banned our printer. I actually took it away from our production office because they were burning like $5,000 worth of ink every 2 weeks, and I was just like, this is ridiculous. So it also saved money.
Exactly.
Yeah, but it was absolute nonsense. But just another thing I want to add is the sort of social side of things, and the transfer of skills. Like we did a project for AEF in Nairobi, and what we tried to do is source systems there that we could apply graphics to, but they didn't know how to use them. So what we did end up shipping everything we needed in 2 containers. It was like 16 projects flat pack. And we worked with their local teams on the ground. So we actually brought them in as crew. So what happened was they literally took note as they were building, and took on those skills to the point where they've actually started investing in those systems now as well, because they've seen how much easier it is than custom walls, for example. You can replace it and the entry level to being able to put up a wall out of system with fabric print takes one person versus a custom team an entire day, 4 people, fill, paint, chuck it in, skip after the show. So they're already doing that. So that skills transfer is quite a vital thing. And I think it's especially prevalent in further north of South Africa's borders. I digress. Yeah.
I agree, and I mean that is part of the sustainability, as you say. It's alleviating poverty. It's a skill transfer that alleviates the poverty, puts food on the table. So that is one of the 17, or 2 of the 17 pillars already ticked. So absolutely agree with you. Similar project I recently did last month for the AGRF in Dar es Salaam in Tanzania, where all the design work was done here in South Africa, about the actual execution and the manufacturing of the different exhibition booths. And we did 60 exhibition booths, was all done in country in Dar es Salaam with a total local crew. And again, we exposed them to a different types of way of doing things to what they're not used to. So absolutely agree with you. Sustainability is, as I said, not just about the greening of the environment, it's also about the sustainability in the spaces, and that goes to what are we calling it, skills transfer and economic beneficiation in a local space. But anyway, I don't want to take up any more of your time. We've got a Q&A session a little bit later when you and I can get into this a bit better. So over to you.
Have it out. Cool. So yeah, I'm focusing specifically on recycling and the indirect disposal of waste. I live in a place called Kommetjie, which is in the south of Cape Town. Long Beach is on my doorstep. And basically what happens is we see firsthand the issue with pollution. And the reason we see it is because what happens in Cape Town is there's a whole lot of canals and river systems. Everyone chucks their rubbish in it. And every time we have a storm, the beaches end up looking like this. And this, what you see here, actually, you might think it doesn't look that bad, but that's like literally 30 square centimeters of big plastic, small plastic, and it's everything from chip packets, juice lids, juice bottles, earbud sticks, lollipop sticks, pet food cans. I mean, it's just chronic what's coming down the river, car tires. And this is every single storm. What happens is, I mean, Kommetjie is like this quasi-hippie community, but so people clean the beach on a regular basis. A lot of the plastic just ends up under the sand and basically lives there. And it slowly breaks down into smaller and smaller pieces, to a point where it becomes microplastic. Marine animals are eating the microplastic and dying. All the fish you're eating these days has plastic in it. So that's how bad it is. I mean, you cannot get fish without plastic in its muscle. You don't see it, it's so small. So plastic really is a major problem. Landfills, this is Witsunds Beach near Scarborough. And it was a landfill site in the 70s and 80s. So what happened, I think it was in 2022, could have been 2021, was we had some heavy rains and it caused a backup of water in the dunes. The ground became saturated and the landfill basically burst its banks, and all of that rubbish ended up in Witsunds Sea and washed all over Cape Town. So it required a major, major cleanup. And the reason I'm showing this is because landfills are not an answer. Taking all your waste and just chucking it in one place and it going to a landfill is just absolutely crazy, when so much of it can be recycled. Cape Town's landfills have got a big problem at the moment because most of them are nearing their full state. If any of you have seen the one out near Muizenberg, Pelican Park area, it's a little mountain. So yeah, just chucking everything, and it goes back to what you're saying about recycling, John. So what we've done at the office, and I think like you, John, is we've got at each touch point in the business. So the kitchens have got the recycling bins, 4 different types, and then on sort of outside the workshops, we've got bigger versions of those. And then once those are full, they go into even bigger bags of plastic, paper-based products, We've got e-waste recycling as well. And then it goes off to reputable recyclers. So the paper goes to one place, the plastic goes to another place where it gets rejigged into new products. But it's just the littering problem in general is just massive. You know, you drive down the road, you see someone drinking a Coke and they just chuck it on the side of the road. It's just insane. And I'm looking at this purely from a coastal perspective, but I mean, if you go and drive through the rural areas, outside every single town, it's like the national flower is plastic. It's really bad. And in some cases, when the towns are 30, 40 k's apart, it's between the whole town the whole way. So, you know, there really is a huge solution. So you can click on to the next slide there, Jackie. So, you know, what are the solutions? The solutions obviously get your recycling in order. Start there. It's a small thing to do. It's super easy. It costs nothing. Recyclers will literally come and take all your waste for free. Our plastic is collected for free. Our paper is collected for free. Our e-waste is collected for free because we're a small e-waste producer. So it literally is costing you nothing other than getting the containers to start the process. When it comes to stands, you know, opt for more eco-friendly wrapping. I found a product called dimple paper, which we found can replace bubble wrap in many instances. Like, so we're able to reduce our need for bubble wrap, wrapping a custom counter, for example, by using dimple paper. And it's paper. It can go and get recycled and repulped and made into new paper. From a stand perspective, is to use reusable systems and materials. So keep a stock of flooring, structures, furniture, modular systems, lighting, build a stock of counters that can be reused for years. You know, as opposed to one-off items. You know, we've seen on shows, especially after big shows, these huge stands go up and they literally end up in the skip outside the venue after the show. The whole thing, walls, lights, graphics, counters, everything just goes in the skip, which is insane. And then, yeah, just to add long-term, you know, recycling, it's all good and well. It's a stopgap, but it's not a long-term solution. We can't just keep making more and more plastic and expect that it's not going to end up in our ecosystems. We really need to change our relationship with plastic. You know, an example is, instead of buying plastic bottled water, which I feel should be banned, just get yourself a reusable glass bottle and fill that up from a water fountain. So yeah, I mean, yeah, there you go. It's really, plastic has its uses, but it's become like this fast food culture thing. You don't need cling wrap to cover your food bowls. There's perfectly acceptable fabric solutions for that are completely reusable. We've got tons in our drawer. And we just reuse them over and over for years. You don't need cling wrap. So yeah, simple thing like that. That's me.
That's cool. Thank you so much, Liam. And I think your wife has a very interesting project on the go, if I'm not mistaken. She takes a lot of the material that she finds on the beaches and she turns them into wonderful pieces of art. It's really phenomenal to see what she does over there.
Yeah, we're trying our best to put her out of business. That's the ultimate goal. So
that would be a wonderful end goal.
Yeah.
And I just want to start with a quote from an American folk singer. His name is Pete Seeger. And he mentioned already in the early 90s, if it can't be reduced, reused, repaired, rebuilt, refurbished, refinished, resold, recycled, or composted, then it should be restricted, redesigned, or removed from production. And I think this is pretty much the culture that we're starting to instill in our organization. And we share the sentiments of, we don't need a handful of people doing zero waste and sustainability perfectly. We need everyone doing it imperfectly so that we can start this environmental revolution. And just following a lot of things that are happening in the Net Zero Events Initiative, where we have looked at stage 1, 2, and 3, and a lot of people don't even know what those stages stand for or mean. Things can look very overwhelming. And but the nice thing about the Net Zero Events Initiative is that they've already published a very interesting best practices guidelines. And this starts looking at a lot of things in our industry, specifically to venue energy, production and waste, food waste and logistics, as well as travel and accommodation. And they take us through already a lot of practical steps. I think it's extremely interesting that this guideline is already available, and a lot of these items are easy to implement items that we can implement not only specifically to venues and organizers and stand builders, but across the board. And, things are practical. We can implement them quite quickly and quite easily. And I think we always have the issue around people like ourselves who are the early adopters and who are keen on making a change. And we also have those people who are, let's call it, they will eventually come around and join this whole movement. And then we also have those people who are just not interested. And we need to find a practical way of perhaps setting some form of guideline in place so that we can start drawing these items into our industry as such. I think of the architectural and the built environment. These days when you submit plans to council for new buildings, you need to do an energy efficiency calculation, and your building needs to meet a certain criteria before you get approval and things like that. And it would be nice to see if we can work together, venues and organizers and stand builders, to come together and to really move this initiative forward. And then the other thing that we're currently engaging with is, with our suppliers at the moment, is understanding what their response to net zero is. What are their plans? How are they moving forward with it? And I know that sometimes a sustainable option at this moment in time can be more expensive than the normal options. But I recently did a part container shipment with DHL, and the price to ship it, inclusive of net zero, and whether that's through shipping it with a sailing boat that is powered by, let's call it wind or air or whatever it is, or whether it's through offsetting at this moment in time, the price was pretty much the same. So there are companies that are starting to move in that direction, large organizations, to see how we can move this whole sustainability issue forward. So yeah, from my side, those are my points. And
thank you, Beat. Yeah, interesting. I think DHL will offset it against the shipping. The container shipping lines not at this point have sustainable vessels. I think they probably are working towards it. But I see in the latest article, in fact, that there is the first MSC net carbon ship, passenger liner. So that is exciting times, and it does mean that the shipping industry are taking this seriously. I think they're looking at the passenger liners first, because that's where you've got most of your people. Usually have 6,500 or 7,000 people on board. So looks like they've started with the passenger liners, which is really exciting news for everybody. Yeah, they're taking it seriously. I'm going to introduce you to Gary.
Thanks, Jackie. I think just going to put things into a more global perspective, sustainability, things we need to consider. Why are we actually looking at something like sustainability? Why are we considering it? Jack, I don't think the PowerPoint's running. I think sustainability offers opportunity to improve on what we've done before, and actually to make our businesses better businesses. In context, the industry's moved to net zero, and everyone who's a global player has jumped on board. Organisers are setting programs in place. I'm not going to go through point by point, but there's a lot of goals which are already as close as 2025 and 2030. Most of these started running already in 2020. So I think South Africa is maybe slightly behind the ball. That's just a case study, and my emphasis on that is looking at the amount of waste generated by disposable exhibition stands, something that Liam was speaking about earlier. Jackie, may just pause on that one. Just looking at changes that are coming already from organisers, and something that Liam was chatting about earlier in the beginning, before everyone came online, is that there's organisers globally that are already setting up goals and structures about what will be allowed on site and what won't be allowed on site. And a lot of it's got to do with disposable stands and reusability, but also about materials that are coming onto sites and the way that things are processed and used. And essentially they want to avoid things like the dumping of the stands behind the hall in the skip. And then also things like logistics, where you can't afford to have 10 or 20 18-wheelers coming onto sites. If you scale up one of our events, like at the CTICC, and you take into context in Europe, when you're talking about shows that are 140,000 square meters, it's not just a few 18-wheelers, it's hundreds of them. And this is the kind of logistics issues that they're trying to get away from as well. We can just go on again, Jackie. Just quickly, definitions from a couple of these organisers. What are single-use stands? Heavy logistics, high demand staff, dust and dirt. I think we can go through them afterwards to make this available. In sustainability, what do you stand to lose? Absolutely nothing. You expanding your offering as an exhibition stand provider. You can upsell, you can improve sustainability levels in your own business at the same time. You enhance what you're doing. I think it does improve client retention. It's running too quickly again. Improved efficiencies. And I think when we're speaking about improved efficiencies, people tend to always, they was said again, sustainability is sometimes more expensive. I think at the end of the day, it actually works out that the efficiencies improve your business and how it's running in any case. So if you're improving on lighter materials and you're using less trucks and less fuel, the efficiencies do prove to be financially beneficial at the same time. It's done again. So sustainability essentially doesn't replace anything, just improves what you have. Trying to make products more effective and ultimately being sustainable is about the earth surviving. Sustainability is, in the end, can go right to anyone. And sustainability is in the end ultimately just about good planning. And if we take time to sit and plan something and think about how we're going to approach it in a proper and a good way, considering materials, processes, and so on, it makes it more sustainable and also obviously more financially viable. If we rush something and we're the lastminute.com, inevitably it's going to turn out to be more expensive and it will definitely be less sustainable. That's it.
Thank you, Gary. I think with Expo Center, I know they're coming back to, I think what Liam was saying is everybody rushes out and throws everything into the dumpster. But I think with Expo Center, they're actually telling you what you bring in, you need to take back out again. So as far as I know, Expo Center don't provide any dumpsters for you. And maybe that's what it should be.
Yeah, that's the focus levels 1, 2, and 3. And that kind of policy is what they call a cradle to gate. So centers or venues, regardless of who it is, end up not worrying about what leaves their site and gets dumped somewhere else. But we need to be taking into account that a crime committed off your property, if you're part of it, you're still culpable. So if you're allowing a stand to come onto the venue and be built and taken away and dumped wherever it is, it's still allowing the dumping to happen or creating opportunity for it to happen.
So is it better then for the venues to have dumpsters, but to have recyclable dumpsters where you put paper in one, board in another, electrical in another? So
no, I think ultimately what it's going to come down to, if you go back to the slides, if you're not allowing someone to bring a disposable stand onto site at all, then they cannot dump it behind the hall, technically, and obviously if there's no space to do that, you won't do it in any case. But you can also not take it somewhere else and dump it. And a lot of what's happening is people are saying, we're building a stand, but we've put it back into reuse or recycling. And what they're saying is they dumped it somewhere where someone's going to take it and use it to build a shack. The shack in itself isn't sustainable. It's going to last one wet season. It's going to fall down around whoever's built it. And we're just promoting a shack culture. So rather do something that is more sustainable, try to create jobs and allow the person that is at the end, supposedly your beneficiary, actually to get a job and to be there in a more permanent situation. So it goes about people, planet, purpose. And that rhyme of people, planet, purpose wasn't put there with the people in front by accident. People do come first, and how we get there is the important part.
I think at our way, like you said, I think the city of Cape Town seems to be moving away from the wood culture, because I see in the extension of Dunoon, they actually, all their shacks are in aluminium. I don't know if anybody's seen that anywhere else, that they're turning their shacks into aluminium. John, what is your take on it?
Yeah, sorry, I had to just put my mic back on. At the end of the day, we, at the Event Greening Forum, we always want to encourage recycling at source, because that makes it very much easier to manage than having to do it post source. So, for example, like organize, and as I said, it's been done before in the past at Meetings Africa, they literally set up the different waste bins, and as this people were breaking down their exhibition booths and stands and packing up after Meetings Africa, they were encouraged to dispose of any unwanted waste material into the different recycling waste bins. And it was those big giant metal ones. So at the end of the day, like Gary says, it's important that organizers also start to look at doing that on site.
Okay.
Sorry, can I ask, maybe can you just go back to the one slide where there's a graph, it's a case study of an event. And it's a UK-based event, so that the scale is huge. One more back. Okay, just to bring that into context, look on the side. The waste at that event equal to 454 mid-sized cars. The wastage on site, the one that we're worrying about, is the 429 tons, 63% of the event. The 170 tons is the venue waste, which is what we're actually speaking about now. We're speaking about venues. That's where they're trying to cut down on waste leaving the venue. So I think venues themselves have got a huge task in its own, which is the 170, the 25%. But if we're looking as an industry, what we should be considering is that 429 tons that's happening, which is 63% of a whole event. And if you consider what we take onto site as each stand builder that goes onto site, and if we now take a 10-ton truck this week, but by the end of 2025, you have to go to site with a 3-ton truck, we've cut that by 70%. And that should be what we're looking at.
Absolutely, agree with you. The numbers are phenomenal, and I've obviously spoken about that at some EGF events when we've done our own industry events with very similar numbers and figures. It's frightening. They say that the eventing industry is one of the most wasteful industries in the world, and that is, as you can see, there's no lie. It's very true, because our stuff is a lot of our stuff is also very temporary. As you say, you know, build a big double-story exhibition booth out of MDF wood, and you know, all of that gets just dumped afterwards. Even taking the wood and giving it to people to build shacks and things like that would be better than just dumping it into one of those waste bins outside of an exhibition center.
But I mean, even if you have a client wanting a custom stand, okay, that's fine. You can still do a custom stand, but I think what it comes down to is relationships with clients. You know, when clients are sort of fast food farming out for different designs, and one year going with one company, another year another company, if you can develop a relationship with a client that's over years, you can do a custom stand in year 1. It maybe gets developed into a double story year 2. So you're reusing the same components, the same signage, the same steel structure, and then you add it, reconfigure it. Like, you could be working with the same client for 10 years or longer, because you've slowly built up this stock, let's call it, for their booth that just gets reused over and over again. So the long-term benefits are you've got a long-term client, so you can plan your cash flow. The client's got a stable base they can trust. So it's just a win-win situation. I mean, I'm on the design fee portfolio as well, and you all know how I feel about doing design for free. These inquiries that come in and getting sent out to 10 different companies every single year, it's the same story. They chop and change. So there's absolutely no chance for sustainability. So there's an education thing that needs to come in. It's a 3-tiered approach. It's the suppliers, it's the venues, it's the organizers, and it's the clients. So you can't just tackle it from one perspective, because otherwise nothing's going to change. It's got to come from all directions.
Yeah, I agree.
Absolutely. Sorry, Gary.
Yeah, I agree with them 100%. It's got a lot to do with the clients, and a lot of them transition through their companies very fast as well. You could be working with a marketing manager for 2 years, the next thing it changes, and the new person wants to do things in a new way, purely to be different, and they don't look at the bigger picture. So I think that's where the organizers are going to play a key role, or have to play a key role. They define what happens at their event, and it's about being culpable and about taking care of the industry and making it a sustainable industry. And if they're defining the parameters of what comes onto site, it's actually far easier for the clients as well to know exactly what should happen where. Same as occupational health and safety. If there weren't defined health and safety aspects, people would just do exactly what they wanted. And it's exactly the same thing, people will follow it. But I think we've got the opportunity to do it in a way that it's not onerous, and that we can grow in directions which make our industry a better place for clients to come. We don't want to create a space that makes it difficult for clients to exhibit. And we want to increase our coverage as a marketing platform. And if clients are looking for sustainability and not finding it, you might find that they go and find something else to do. So if we are offering them something which is a good sustainable marketing platform where they are getting the exposure that we know as an industry is the best exposure that you can get to your customers, then it's a win-win for everybody. But client education, yeah, 100%.
Exactly.
Interesting question. Do exhibitors actually know about net carbon or the sustainability 17 pillars? Are exhibitors and companies, do they actually know about this? Or are municipalities advising that companies need to become sustainable? So maybe
I don't
that's
see that. I don't see that taking. Sorry, Jackie. I thought you were done. Apologies. So from my perspective, I don't. And the Event Greening Forum, obviously, that's why we're embarking on this whole campaign and working together with partners like EXSA and other associations, is that we need to make that awareness out there, because yes, people are aware of climate change and all of that, but they still they don't. Again, it's this frightening scenario: is where do I make a difference and how do I make a difference, that people haven't come to realize. And it's up to us as the industries, as associations, and as organizers and as companies, that we need to start ensuring that we do the education. It starts with us, the chicken before the egg scenario. I think we need to be the start, and we often refer to it, and when I do my speaks, I talk about it, the push and pull strategy. Do our clients push us into the sustainability and this greening space, or do we pull them along? And unfortunately, I think, to your point, Jackie, not many people are aware, in terms of the corporate environment client space, are aware of the 17 pillars and the net zero campaign that's been started. So therefore, we as an industry needs to pull up. We're the ones that need to. We in the cold face the whole time. We need to pull our clients into the space, rather than waiting for them to push us.
John, if I can just jump in there quickly. I think there's definitely a push and pull, but part of it is also there's not much available in our industry as a sustainable option. So if you can go into websites, everyone says we're sustainable, but if you have to lay out the products next to each other and say, what have you got, and put the analogy into the space of electric cars versus petrol, there's a huge variety becoming available. You're sitting in South Africa, so energy is a problem, and you won't have that. But in Europe, if you go and look at it, the guys have got a huge availability to choose from. And are we offering our end clients that same availability? I don't think that we do.
I think, Gary, our situation is unique because our electrical system is so old. We're struggling to keep the lights on.
Yeah, but I'm talking about exhibitions now. The electrical cars are just aside.
Yeah.
In the exhibition environment, if I go into someone's website, I'm specifically looking for something sustainable, it's hard to find. And if you go look at most companies, corporates, all of them are following sustainability legislation. A lot of them are ISO rated already. So if you go look at their water use, energy, waste, everything inside their own tier 1 analysis, they're doing everything right. And they're starting to go down into tier 2, where their suppliers also need to be sustainable. But when they go to an exhibition, it's not so much. And a very good example is, again, the weekend saw an exhibition stand, World Wildlife Foundation, in a shopping center, promoting what World Wildlife Foundation promotes with a stand made of plastic. And so what was available to them to use? They obviously haven't been offered something by whoever's their marketing company or agency or whatever it is.
So, Gary, to your point, exactly that. And I agree with you. A lot of the companies that we deal with are big multinational global companies, as well as some local companies who have all these policies in place. And when they're in their working environment, they apply these policies and these sustainabilities and these ISO ratings and things like that. But the minute it comes to doing anything outside of it, whether it be an event or a exhibition, they somehow seem to forget all these that these rules and that should be carried across. And it's happened to me. I mean, I've been involved in it personally, and it's actually, for me, it's astounding. And that's where this whole greenwashing comes in, where they ride on their credentials that they have in terms of their own policies, and then try and implement those across to the events and that, when they're not actually doing it. But that's when it comes to my argument again, that says, then if you are a design company or an events company that's been taking a brief from a client, and you get to understand what your client is about and what their policies are, it should be your responsibility to give them and offer them a solution that talks to those elements. We're always very good at taking a client's CI manual and making sure that their stand design, look and feel complies to their CI manual, but do we look at their sustainability policies and make sure that whatever we're offering them from a design or an event execution element is answering their environmental policies that they have internally in the company? And the answer is no, we don't go that far. So, because it's always about the look and rather than what can be done. And then, so that's where I say we as an industry are irresponsible in that way, not responsibly advising our clients correctly. And then the other thing is obviously looking for solutions. Yes, it's hard, and yes, but if you look and if you're passionate about it, and if it's something that you're committed to, you will always find a solution. You know, so it's just about taking that effort and making that step and wanting to do it. It's one thing talking, and it's the actual thing doing. A lot of people talk but don't do. And my thing is now, you know, do as you you know, to walk the talk that you're giving, and that's what we try to do as a company. Now, I just wanted to share these images, so I put some pictures on the chat group of an exhibition booth that we recently did in Bredasdorp for NAMPO, and literally I put a picture of the exhibition stand. And on the picture, you will see there's a little bag. Check this bag, 40 power 40 bag. Okay, it's a plastic bag, but and that is the total sum of waste that stand produced to put up. So now, if you tell me you can't do it, I'm showing to you that it can be done. That was the total amount of waste that was produced to produce that stand, and it was a 6x3 stand. So yes, it can be done. If you just make the effort and take the effort to do it, it's possible. So no big waste bins were needed. That was taken, the plastic, and put into the plastic recycle. So, you know, I'd like to see the day when we don't have that 429 tons that your graph is showing, and we can have one simple little plastic bag like that. Can you imagine the difference that's going to make to the environment and the landfill sites and things like that? I just wanted to bring it to everybody.
Yeah, John, and you know, it's such a simple mistake. Like you caught yourself going, oh my word, I put it into a plastic bag. So it really is, we've just got into such habits, and it's really just slowly unlearning those habits that become mindful. I mean, Woolworths is exactly, if you go into Woolworths, you will never get a plastic bag out of Woolworths. They're giving you the cloth bags. And if you have too many of them, as most of us leave them in our cars and forget about it, you can hand it back to Woolworths again and they'll recycle it. So I think they really have taken it into account, but it really is, it's simple mistakes that we are making or we're not aware of. So it really is that easy. And it's just slowly changing the mindset on a daily basis. And I think it's putting something like in the WhatsApp chat, a tip for the week. John, can we put you in on the spot and say every week, put a tip for the week of what is the greening or recycling tip or sustainability tip of the week? Because if people slowly each week start seeing something, go, oh, okay, yeah, I can do that. It really starts getting us excited about recycling and what we're doing that we might not even be aware of.
Absolutely, with the greatest pleasure. We already do that for our EGF members. We've got our EGF members WhatsApp group, and in there, literally, we ask our members each week to share a tip that they can, and we put it in a post, and we share it on our social media platforms and that. So absolutely, yes, we'll do that with the greatest of pleasure.
Yeah, please include us. Is there any questions from the panel at all? Has anybody in the audience got questions?
We've got quite a few comments and that in the chat. If you want me to go through that and people can...
Yeah.
Okay, so the first
Yes.
one came from Chad, who said that essentially people are lazy to recycle or do things the right way, and that is the biggest problem. There's also on shows a lack of dustbins and all exhibitions should use glass, and glass bottles and glasses. And he's written in their code of conduct that if anybody is caught throwing, littering or throwing stumpies, I take it that cigarettes, they will be taken to task, and it's a disciplinary action. Liam loves that whole thing. Jackie suggested that a few years ago there was a Zap It in the ZB campaign for littering, and the litter is out of control. So perhaps we could come up with some kind of an initiative and have a campaign. Chad said that that was great. Gary said that there is a similar initiative in Cape Town, and Chad said that there's lots of companies that are there to take waste away and to be sustainable. We just need to be in contact with them and make use of it. And he's actually got trailers that are there to address certain issues, and that, especially in the transport industry, are helping with the sustainability of transporting goods. And he also said that it's an excellent idea to work together and perhaps have MOUs where we put them in place to make it more official. And Jackie has said that she agrees with you, John. With exhibitions, we must all educate the exhibitors. For me, perhaps what we should do is, with your EXSA member logo that you have, you can put on there X amounts sustainable, or I practice sustainable business, or something like that, to promote yourselves under the EXSA banner, to say that you are a promotable green company. So those are, and then Pippa said there's so many benefits of building sustainable stands. And she's asking, the question is, what is going to stop them, and what can we do to make a shift in their mind, because it's a mindset. And then Sabu commented on John's, that it's absolutely incredible, your waste or non-waste of stand. So that's what's come out of the chat so far, just summed up briefly, if anybody wants to add.
Absolutely. And just from my side, and I agree, is glass better than plastic in terms of at exhibitions? There's a debate around that, because remember, now, if you're using glass bottles or glasses, they have to be washed. So you're now looking at additional water that's being consumed in order to wash all the glassware, and then of course the materials such as the soap and the dishwasher that gets used. Are we using environmentally friendly or biodegradable soap powders and things like that? So it gets quite long, and that's where I think the most frightening thing about sustainability is that, depending on how far down the chain you go, it becomes all encompassing. At home, for example, again, I'll go back to it, is that I've banned all non-biodegradable and non-environmentally friendly and soap and cleaning products and detergent products, because once it gets into the river system and things like that here in South Africa, because we know we've all got leaking pipes and manholes and things like that, and everything gets into the environment. I've kind of banned that all in my home and at my office as well when we do cleaning. That's something that we need to look at. So a solution that we had earlier this year at an event is that at conferences and at events, and that corporates are always looking at giving away gifts, and they usually give away these stuff that's made in China, plastic nonsense that everybody ends up either throwing in the dustbin when they get home or giving it away, corporate gifts. We decided to, and the client went along with it, and it was phenomenal. We gave every guest as they arrived a water bottle, branded water bottle, glass water bottle. And then instead of having those, we had water fountains around the venue, the whole venue. And literally everybody, as they wanted water, had their own water bottle. They went and filled it up, cast chilled water, drank and could continuously fill it up themselves. And then they had that water bottle to take home and use for their gymming and things like that afterwards as well. So that's another way of rethinking how we go about removing plastic and then again solving the problem around glass and having to wash it and use detergents that may be damaging to the environment. So if you put your heads down and think about it, the easy solutions. It's just that, as Chair said, a lot of people are lazy. We don't want to. We just keep defaulting back to the tried and tested because it's the easiest and simplest way to do it. If you embark on the greening journey, it's going to take some time and investment. But believe you me, the time and the investment you make now is going to pay off in the long run for generations to come. Because as we all know, our planet is on fire and in danger of being destroyed by us. And we're going to leave. What legacy do you want to leave? You know, I just keep thinking to myself, if I had to live in 50 years from now, what kind of earth would I want to live in? And I then come back and say, okay, what can I do to make sure that the earth I want to live in 50 years time will leave? And what contribution am I making to make sure that it's the space that I want to leave behind? So yeah, that's where I'm. And then to your point, yes, use the EXSA logo, join the EXSA logo, sorry, join the journey to greening. Start literally from today in your office. Go out and buy recycle bins, put labels on them, and start using those kind of things. And you're really, as I said, starting to make that difference. And then of course we encourage you to join the EGF and become part of the green journey as well.
Thank you, John. I think, you know, if it's like your little comments each week that everybody shares a tip, is if you can change by 1 degree, is over a longer period of time, your trajectory is going to be huge. It's like an aircraft. If an aircraft changes 1 degree, by the time he gets to his destination, he's completely away from where he initially wanted to be. So I think the same with us, is if we do 1 degree or we just make those small changes, you'll find in a year's time how far we've actually come from where we are now. So it's just kind of one step at a time that we change everything. Every week there can be a little change and make people aware of the greening. So I think it's a start. We're here at the beginning, and it's a start to get everybody mindful and educate the exhibitor. We can ask the organizers to help us do through their exhibitors manual, encourage them to do greening, use suppliers who have a sustainability program or have an offset. So I think the more we encourage everybody to become part of the sustainability, the more we'll grow throughout the year. Is there any questions from anybody before I hand over to Sibusiso?
I think, Gary, if you can reply to Pippa's comment that you put on the chat in person so everybody can get it. I think that's very important.
Yeah, we can share the presentation with pleasure.
Yeah, I don't know if the chat's come up. So just Gary
I've
put a very important point to Pippa's question on the chat group. So I just thought if he could address in person, then we've got it on the recording that goes out.
So I think, Pippa, you're asking about seeing the benefits of building the sustainable expo stand or working sustainably. I think, you know, it's bigger picture. The benefits are there and they're huge, but it's about perceptions. And do people perceive sustainability as just another issue in the long line of issues that we face daily as people, or do they see it as something which is a positive? And obviously Pippa's seeing it as a positive. I think people are creatures of habit. So we buy what we've bought for the last 10 years, and it's very easy to default, especially if you're in a rush and you've got to do something last minute. You default to what you did last year and you slam it in and that's done. So I think going back to that planning, but also what's available you'll buy. So if you walk into a shop, this is how people do shop. We're creatures of habit. You go into Checkers, you see 1,000 things on a rack, and to the left there's a few small items. You choose from the 1,000 things. No one goes to the small items. And then unless we've got a portfolio that's available for people to shop off and to buy, I don't see them changing to something sustainable very quickly. the reason or a compelling reason to do so isn't that evident to people.
Thanks, Gary.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree with you. As long as there's demand and as long as we're buying the product, they'll continue manufacturing. As soon as there's a drop in demand, then the manufacturers will look at their product differently. So I think it's our responsibility to be mindful of what we buy and what we include in our lives as to whether we want the manufacturers to continue making that particular product. So I agree with you, Gary. Anybody else? Sibusiso, thank you everybody for joining. I'm going to hand you over to Sibusiso to close the Connect session.
Good morning, everybody. Apologies about that. Technologies in terms of unmuting and forgetting to unmute. You think that after all this time, we would have gotten it right. But I guess just like sustainability, it will take some time for us to get it right. Thank you for everybody that's attended here. And I think the speakers have spoken about something that is in our minds, but we take a bit of time to get it right. I really like what everybody has said, including John, in terms of the venues, how they could also be involved. I really like this dimple paper. I did not know about Liam, but it's something that I think I'll be investigating and something that we'll want to reuse also, or to use in our environments also. You know, it's very important that the venues and the organizers also get involved. I don't want to pass the buck as if we are not part of the problem in terms of the exhibition stand builders. But if we can have the venues consistently giving the message out of recycling. So even when, yes, we recycle, there are separate bins for plastic and paper, but even the staff themselves, when they send it out to the back, they must make sure that they follow on with what the venue has put out for the exhibitors and the visitors. One other thing is about the organizers. You know, if the organizers also just make sure that in their communication, this is one thing that's heavily communicated, even if it's a big scare. Well, it's not a big scare what Chad is doing, but even if we follow some sort of direction from what Chad is also doing with the company, that people will be fined if they are not, you know, following protocol in terms of using the recycle systems and services that are put out there. So, you know, this is very, very good and very interesting to see. And I'm just really wishing that as the year dies down, 2024, we plan it a bit better in terms of making sure that we follow suit in terms of providing the education for the staff and for the attendees, you know, educating them about this, and also just partnering up with these recycling services, which would be good. You know, there are people that take in Durban ICC, I've seen people that come around and collect wood so they can reuse it for cabinets and so forth. So, you know, all these partners in the recycling service, we have to have a look at them. And this also goes down to the venues and the organizers, including ourselves, the stand builders. So this is really great to see. And I'm really loving the conversations that we're having. I would definitely say in our next meetings, Jackie, as EXSA, that we definitely speak to the organizers about what we can do to make sure that we take on these sustainability goals, and we engage and use less of non-recyclable materials. Thank you very much for everybody who attended. I think that's my word. Jackie, you can close it off. Thank you.
Thank you, everybody. Thank you for attending. Thank you, CBC. So most definitely we can put it on the agenda and start a conversation around the sustainability. Thank you to our panel. Really appreciate the time that you gave up for the EXSA Connect and the passion that you have for sustainability. Your passion will help us to become more passionate. So we'll buy into your passion about sustainability. So thank you very much, everybody. Have a fantastic week ahead and good luck. We're all into a busy season. So good luck with your events and we'll connect soon. Thank you. Bye.
Bye-bye. Thank you, everybody.
Thanks, everyone.
Thanks, everybody, and thanks
Thank
to
you.
the speakers for giving up your time. We appreciate you.